That's a samba. There you go. No, not a stag. That's a female. That's a female. There's another one here. There you go. Right in front of the lamppost. All right. So, in his analysis, he said, that in few of these occasions, the leopard had actually come to search for a dog. He advises people in these leopard-affected areas not to keep, small dogs in houses that are near the jungle. So if the leopard comes to that area, it come looking out for houses that are closer to the jungle, and that's where the accident happens. That's where, since it's a nocturnal animal, he would assume a kid playing to be a dog and take it away, and that's how the man-eating killing starts. So folks, it's like 8:30 right now, and we are at Mohan checkpost. Now the road that goes to the right is the one that we've come by. Now we are going to move on the other road. We'll probably take a little night drive. I'll not go right till Marchula, but I'll try going till Chimtakar. The jungle looks blissful though. Off-roading everywhere, and the reason, even the roads are, it's a metal road. The reason for these off-roads in patches is that these are waterways, causeways, and that is why they are a little rough throughout the year. Now driving alone, it reminds me of my old, my young days when I was in college in Almora, and Almora was a little town then, hadn't grown up as big as it is right now. So it was the month of January, and I may have told this to you in my previous vlogs. I was returning from my tuition classes, just perhaps around 7:30 in the night. Now, where we live in Almora, you must have seen in the previous vlogs, that place was very secluded then, talking about 1999, 2000. Not many houses surrounded by jungles, and there's a little turn before my house, and as soon as I took that turn, the lights of my bike, they actually, beamed upon a couple of red lights that were looking at me. And when the focus was actually on that particular figure, I realized it was a leopard just gazing at me, and it was hardly 20 meters away from me. And that gave me chills. I mean, I didn't know how to react, to an extent that I did not apply any brakes, and I let my bike go the way it was going. I was fortunate enough that inches away from the leopard changed its mind and it moved up the hill. I didn't stop there. I went to my uncle's house. That's roughly 200 meters away from where we live. And then I called my dad and told him that such an incident had happened. Then he went out, checked everything, and then he asked me to come back home. So that's one chilling incident that I've had as a youngster, as a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old with a leopard. So I was talking to, the owner of the resort. He was telling me about these flying fox and flying squirrels. There was a time when in my hometown Almora, the sight of flying fox and a flying squirrel was very, very common. And you're talking about the golden 90s, when we lived there as kids, or even in Nainital where I actually was schooled. These flying fox and flying squirrels were very, very common. But these days, after the deforestation and the concrete jungle that have actually now developed on these hills, they've become a rare sight. So talking about my home in Almora, there's another incident, and that was again when I was in college. So right above my home there's a school, and right above that school there's a huge water tank from where water is supplied to many houses in that area. So a person from the water department goes every morning, early in the morning, and it opens the supply. So again, it was winter, around January I remember, because we had our winter holidays, just like you guys have your summer holidays in the place. We have our winter vacations. So what had happened is that I was woken up. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30. Still, it was on the darker side. The sun hadn't come out since it was winter time. there was a huge cry outside me. People had collected. I went to find out what had happened. So the person who used to go and open the water supplies was found. People thought he was dead, but then he had just fainted right at the water tank. So once he gained his conscience, people asked him what had happened. So he said it was still dark, around 5:30 in the morning, or maybe 5:45 or something. He had, gone to that place to open the water supply. Now what had happened was that there was a leopard who was probably sitting on top of the tank. And when the leopard, heard that noise and this person, working on those gadgets to open the supply, it leapt and it jumped over him and vanished into the wild. But that moment, and I can understand, must have been so scary for the guy that he actually fainted. So when you've grown up in the jungle, when you've grown up in the hills, you have all such tales. We've made a substantial climb and the air's become a little cooler. Of course, we've gained a lot of altitude since the time we've driven from Wuhan. We continue to climb up, and the weather gets relatively colder the more you climb up. It was terribly cold in the night in Almora yesterday after it hailed. I had to actually put on my jacket. In the jungle, you get so many illusions. Now, there are leaves that are falling off the trees that I can see on the headlight of my car. Every movement, it kind of excites me as if something's moving. And then I finally realize, that's the leaves that are falling right now. It looks like a forest checkpost right here. Is it? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is the forest checkpost. Silence of the jungle, a ribbon-like road winding up the hill, and the quiet trees. Every moment is worth relishing. I may sound like a philosopher. If I do, my sincere apologies. I'm sorry, I just burped while talking. But this is something that really relaxes me a lot. Yes, this is Chimta Khal. You go straight, you go to Marchula and Garhwal, and that's the board, Chimta Khal. So I'm just going to drive up for a kilometer or so. Well, there's a theory that a lot of people say that we are not scared of the jungle, we are used to it. Please advise on what you think about this fear. Because when I am there in the jungle, a little element of fear is always there. And I've spoken to a lot of wildlifers, to hunters as well, who go out hunting man-eating leopards and tigers. They've always told me that it's good to have an element of fear, because what it does is it keeps you conscious the whole time, and it always, helps you take evasive actions or to take precautions when you're in the jungle. You don't become reckless. So that fear, that little fear that you have in the jungle, it kind of protects you from any odd things that may happen to you. So that's a theory that I believe in, that when I am there in the wild, in the wilderness, in the jungle, there's always an element of fear. I am not reckless. Yeah, so talking about the element of fear, I mean Jim Corbett, the famous Jim Corbett, people call him a hunter, but I think he was a great wildlife conservationist as well. People here in Uttarakhand used to actually worship him because he had, rid these people of dreaded man-eating tigers and leopards. Of course, he's written many books. So, a very brave man, but he also tells about fear in his books that he's written, with all the experience, that he's had in the wild while hunting some of the most feared man-eating tigers and leopards. So while driving, I recalled a couple of his chapters that he had written in different books. So you all know that the first tiger that Jim Corbett shot was the man-eating tiger of Champawat, who had created a record in the number of human lives that it had claimed. You know, first became an established man-eater in Nepal, and then the Nepalese army chased it across the Sharda River to India, where it made its inroads into the then Almora district, which is now Champawat district. So before independence, the United Provinces, that was the current Uttar Pradesh, the hilly areas had just 3 districts: Almora, Nainital and Garhwal. So the districts of Almora, Bageshwar, Pithoragarh and Champawat, the entire region used to be Almora district then. So the Nepalese army had chased it over to India, to Almora district. But before they did, it had already claimed approximately 300 to 400 people or lives, and it continued to do so here in India. It killed in excess of 300 or 400 people. So Jim Corbett said that he didn't have any experience of man-eating hunting before hunting the man-eating tigress of Champawat. Just let them pass. There's a big vehicle that's coming behind us, so we are going to let it pass. Alright, here we go. Continuing with our story. So when Jim Corbett had gone to hunt for that particular tiger, he went to a village where he said the sanitary conditions had become really bad because the tigress had killed a woman, in that village. So from that day onwards, no one actually had the courage of even getting out of the courtyard, and that is why the sanitary conditions were really bad. So there was a room that was given for the disposal of Jim Corbett and his men. So after seeing them off, he said that I'm going to actually look for the tiger and spend the night on the road, which people thought was suicidal. But then that's how Jim Corbett wanted it to be. So he had no experience then of man-eating tigers. So it was a very quiet road that actually meandered over the shoulder of the hill where the tigress had actually killed that particular woman. So Jim Corbett actually said that I wanted to wait there and spend the night on the road. Till the time it was quiet, Jim Corbett was fairly okay with it, but then a sudden gush of wind started blowing, and the trees, which had dry leaves then, they started making a lot of noise. That's when Jim Corbett mentions that he was really scared. And he mentioned it in his book that it seemed as if hundreds of tigers were advancing towards him. So that's one instance of fear, when we talk about fear in jungle, that Jim Corbett mentions himself in the chapter The Man-Eating Tigress of Champawat, or the Champawat Man-Eater. The second instance that he's mentioned that I remember is when he shot the most famous leopard to ever exist in the history of wildlife, and that was the man-eating leopard of Rudraprayag, which as per the record had killed over 125 people, which Jim Corbett said was not true as per him, because there were many recorded deaths, many deaths that weren't actually put into the record, and there were many people who had died few days after the attack, so they couldn't survive the attack and they succumbed to the injuries, and that was also not recorded as a kill done by the man-eater. So as per Jim Corbett, it had killed more people than the books or the records show. So one fine day, that particular leopard had killed a cow on the banks of the Alaknanda river near Rudraprayag, and Jim Corbett thought that he's going to sit by the bank of the river and take shelter of a big rock that was jutting out right at the bank, and it was exactly in front of that rock that the carcass of that cow actually lay. So Jim Corbett said that my hearing power was tremendous, and I thought that if I take shelter under that rock with the cow right in front of me, I would get an opportunity to hear the leopard walk on dry leaves if it approaches the cow. So that's what Jim Corbett thought, and the plan could have worked for him. But what happened, suddenly dark clouds actually rolled in as the night grew older, and there was a gush of rain. Now Jim Corbett was actually very scared. That's what he mentions in his book, that every drop of that rain that was falling on those dry leaves gave him a feeling that the leopard is advancing towards him from all directions. And he thought of suspending that mission. Now there was another struggle that Jim Corbett mentions that he was really scared of, and that was to make a retrieve back to his camp in the dark. And at that point of time, he didn't even have a flashlight with him. So helter-skelter, he tied his coat around his neck so that in case of a sudden encounter with the leopard, it is not able to inflict his canine inside his throat. So that would work as a cover. The gun was of no use in that retrieve, so he kept the gun aside beside him, and he took out his knife that he called an Afridi knife that he bought from Calcutta, I guess. And he mentions about that knife that it had been used for a murder that he later on purchased from Calcutta. So with the knife in his hand and his coat tied around his neck, Jim Corbett made a retrieve to his camp, and that was really scary. And when he reached his camp, and the next morning when he actually went out to see where if the cow had been eaten by the leopard, he saw that on his footmarks were the pug marks of the leopard. So the leopard had actually chased him to his camp. So these are, guys, two instances of what fear can be, and whether it is good or not, well, I totally leave it up to you to decide whether it's good or not when you're out in the jungle. I mean, I like to have or keep that fear because it helps me take precautionary measures. Did you hear something? I think I heard a loud cry. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's recorded on the camera or not, but it wasn't like a deer. Neither the barking deer. So I've always been a fan of Jim Corbett and his books. So a lot of you, who watch, all kind of wildlife vlogs, visit Jim Corbett, you should try and know about who this gentleman was. And it's going to give you a lot of knowledge about the jungle. Which of course, is half-baked until you experience it yourselves. And even the animals are changing their habits with time. The change in the ecosystem that's happened. Normally, what we've witnessed, in the recent time is we've seen leopard in groups, adult leopards in groups, whereas the joker's cry is that a leopard is a solitary animal that hunts out alone, lives alone. It's only during the mating season that it's seen where the leopard is. So these are a few things that are changing. The hunting pattern, leopards, and even Jim Corbett's mentioned it in most of his books. They hunt during the night from dusk to dawn, and the tigers, they usually hunt during the daytime. Now we see that these rules that used to, that he's mentioned like 100 years ago, they're being broken now. Leopards are actually have started hunting during the day. Not very recent, but not very old as well. You must have seen my vlog when I traveled to Jim Corbett's village, Galadung in Choti Haldwani, the homestay where I lived, the Great Hornbill. I mean, they had tied the cattle right at the edge of the house, and right next to it is the jungle. And the leopard hunted the cow at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, is that an owl? Yes, it was. Just flown away. I hope the camera was able to capture something. Yeah, so the hunting pattern is seeing a change. The movement of leopards into human areas has also increased because The jungles have been cut and its natural resources in form of bucking deer, the wild hare. Oh, it's lightning again, guys. I don't want history to repeat like it happened yesterday with me, so I'm gonna drive a little fast. Yeah. So all these resources, they're becoming scarce due to the cutting of the forests, and that's why these leopards now they're routing towards civilization. Because when they travel to these villages, when they move to these villages, dogs are there, goats are there, which is now becoming the primary source of food. And there are times when a fully grown leopard is even attacking bulls and cows and taking them away, dragging them away. Now, to this matter of fact, and these leopards becoming man-eaters even more than the tigers, the great hunter in this region, Mr. Lakpat Rawat, did an analysis. When a leopard or a man-eating leopard, comes into a village, it does a lot of recce. So it does a lot of research, and that is why a leopard's attack is 99% accurate. So it looks for its prey on the edge of the village so that it doesn't have to negotiate out of the village through a lot of homes, thereby getting busted by the villagers. So it looks for a home that's on the edge of the jungle. So if the leopard comes to that area, it comes looking out for houses that are closer to the jungle, and that's where the accident happens. That's where, since it's a nocturnal animal, he would assume a kid playing to be a dog and take it away, and that's how the man-eating killing starts. So that's a pretty cool analysis that I found. There's another water crossing here. So a lot of deer today, sambars and whatnot, spotted deers and one barking deer. And my God, it started lightning. So we can expect a deluge of rain in the night. And it was there in the forecast that it may rain, so I'm assuming that it would. This is turning out to be a very long vlog. I'd request you to please watch it as much as you can, because I'm going to put this as one vlog. I understand that it's going to go beyond 40 minutes with no sight of the tiger or the leopard, and so it's not going to serve that purpose of yours if you're looking forward to witness a big cat in this vlog. No, there's no cat that's so far been discovered on this vlog. Deer are there, a beautiful drive is there, and some of our own experiences and experiences of big wildlife hunters are there. So that's what you would hear in this particular vlog. And this is the water crossing with no water, very minimal water. This becomes a little dangerous during the monsoon. There's some heavy rainfall in the hills up. This gets flooded. So I think we've reached Mohan. Yes, we have. So first of all, guys, I really thank you for staying with me if you have on this particular vlog. I understand it's a very long vlog, and the expectations was for me to show you the tiger or the leopard in this vlog, which I could not. However, I do hope that you've enjoyed every bit of information that I've shared. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon as we move from Almora district into Nainital district now, and that's our homestay right ahead, the Magpie Corbett. And let's park here. We have sufficient space to park. Yes, we do. Alright guys, I'm going to take your leave. If there's anything exciting that happens tonight, I'm going to show you. Stay tuned, stay safe. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.